am reminded that not everybody is excited about the gift giving. Because somebody cannot afford the gift giving. In fact, somebody is deciding right now how they're going to make their ends meet in order to pay bills that are due by the end of the month, or how they're going to put food on the table. Y'all don't hear me today. Because we're glorying and our gluttony, and that's all right if you got it like that. But then at the same time, don't forget to open up your tenderheartedness. If you can see somebody else and then yet not be merciful unto them. Oh yeah. Oh yeah. If you can see somebody else. We wonder, I told them at my job of the week, I'm not participating in this white elephant game y'all got going on. And I told them last year. Sit down, no game. And I went out the window. I didn't go out the window. I pointed out the window. I see somebody listen. I pointed out the window. And I said, y'all see Children's Hospital over there? I said, there's some kid that we can help to brighten their day as opposed to us buying gifts for each other. You see, sometimes you just have to stand boldly and say some things. People may not like it when you say it, but sometimes you got to say it. Because we're so good at getting things for ourselves. We're so good at exchanging gifts with those who can exchange with us. But then we forget about somebody else who is unable to do something for themselves. And then we think that we have done something. But he said, every Christian. Yes, sir. I'm so glad he said every Christian. Yes, right. Everybody who's chosen of God. I'm so glad he didn't just say the preacher. He didn't say just the deacon. He said every believer, every chosen person ought to have some tenderheartedness. I'm so hard, ain't tender about nothing. I know many times we want to say tenderness, is a sign that, you can't let that weak side, but you know what? Tenderheartedness ain't nothing that you want to see Christ. And if you want to see him in peace, you got to have some compassion. You got to have some tenderheartedness. In other words, he's saying, you can see somebody. Yes, sir. You see, a lot of times we want to use reasoning and rationale to dictate our decisions. And not our heart. Yes, you see, you ought to be moved with compassion. If you see somebody in need, you ought to be moved in your heart. You ought to let your heart. You see, your heart will speak to you and say, you ought to do something. That's right. But then reason come in and say, well, you know what? I don't know what to do. Or better yet, I ain't going to do it because if I do this, then that's going to take away from mine. How many know that's our problem today as much as it was then? We worry all about ourselves and not someone else. Notice that the apostle would have, and he's talking to the church folk. He would have them to feel the slightest touch of another one's misery. Sometimes people can be in misery. And let me drop this in. You may look at us right now and say, everything looks to be just fine. No, don't look at your neighbor too much now. You may say everything is fine with your neighbor. But you know for yourself that everything ain't fine with you. Yes, all right. And we know just as it is with us. with somebody else. My brothers and sisters, that you may see a person and you may think that everything is going just fine, but you don't know the misery that somebody is in right now. Yeah, you may think, oh, well, look at that. That's wonderful. Yeah. But you don't know what decisions they had to make on yesterday regarding the bills or financial situation, about health, about something of a child or a grandchild. You don't know what misery. The saddest part though is to see somebody in misery and not be moved. All right. This is for a Christian. To see somebody in misery, somebody in need, and then not be moved. Yes. There. Some of the worst tears I've shed have not been for me. All right. But have been for someone else. There. Because the bowels of mercy. You see, we ought to have those qualities. We ought to be able to feel. He said, put on some of that. You see, we said, put on some of that tender-hearted mercy. Seems like oxymoron. Tender-hearted. If you're tender-hearted, it seems like that is mercy. But notice he said it's a double portion of it. It's a double portion of that tender-hearted mercy. And at Christmas time, all you see is the merchants talking about come in and see us. Amen. But I said to the believers, what about some tender-hearted mercy? Not only things that are well in your house, all right, but look into your neighbors. Look to somebody else and see. Maybe there's somebody else. Maybe there's a senior citizen that maybe you ought to take an extra plate to at the holidays. Maybe there's somebody else that you know whose gas might have been cut off. Oh yeah. That may be somebody. Those things are not as well as we may think with somebody else. That's why I say that we're blessed today, my brothers and sisters. But then let us not close up our bowels of mercy and see somebody else in distress and not even want to go and help, not even do the things that are necessary. He said then we ought to have some kindness, which is that inward, abundant mercy that causes us to get into action. It put it into exercise. You see, one thing to be moved by compassion when you see somebody else's misery, but then it's another thing to act. Did not there happen to be an incident on the Jericho Road? Everybody remember that parable that Jesus told? Yeah. A man who was robbed and left. People passed him by, and they saw him, and they just saw him, and they kept on. And these were the religious, righteous people, the Levites, the Pharisees, and they didn't stop to help him. But then one came along who should not have, but he did anyway. And stopped and helped him. See, this is what Paul is saying to us. As he said to them, we ought to have this kindness. And at this Christmas time, that's the thing that's missing. You see, I get the commercials. I get all of them. I see all the Walmarts. See all the Toys R Us. And as I said in Sunday school, they're starting early. They're staying open. They're open on Thanksgiving. They're staying early for you because it's all about they're driven by profit. And I'm saying, what are we motivated by? The kindness. They were saying the other day, the food bank. The Arkansas Food Bank, they had a rally because Ron Sanders, executive director, said that there have been so many other folk who have needed the services. Guess what? Because people are in misery, people are hurting. And they need again the extra resources. Guess what? We are the food bank. We are the ones to provide for somebody else. He says the kindness. Then he says the almonds are mine. that we ought to not just have thoughts of ourselves, that we ought to think that there is nothing about me. You see, many times we get the thought that we think that we're all of this and we think that we're all of that. But we ought to think of ourselves of lowly estate. I don't care who we are. We ought to think of ourselves as nothing. I'm nothing. I tell folks all the time, I'm nothing. You know, I appreciate all the titles that people may call me from time to time, but I'm all right with whatever they may call me.
All right.
I'm all right with it. You know, you can call me whatever you can call me because I realize that the humbleness of mine. Now, like I said, I understand that there is a respect that goes with it. I do appreciate that. But my humbleness is that not because I think that I'm so much, not because I think that I'm this or I'm that, but I realize that I'm the chief of sinners, and had it not been for the grace of God, for it is only by the grace of God that I am that I am. It's nothing of myself. No special gift that I have. No, but only just by the grace of God that I have. And that every opportunity that has come my way, I thank God. Like I said, I thank God. The evidence of mine. Abraham Woodard Jr. Always in his introduction, whenever he had an opportunity to introduce, he always says that this man is humble. And like I said, and that's what I would have, again, for God to bless me, that I'll always be humble. Yes, sir. And like I said, he will talk. He talked about how that I was there in D.C. and had an opportunity, many opportunities that were afforded to me, to go to the White House and welcome with an invitation from the president to watch other heads of state come to town. But then he said, but then Abraham Jr. would say, but this is still Darrell Montgomery.
Amen.
Because I realize that it is nothing that I have done, but it is only simply again, by the grace of God. Everything that I have, everything that I am, it is only again by the grace of God. The job that I have today, it is only again by the grace of God. So many times we get to thinking that all of these things about what we have done. All of these things we start boasting about. Look at what I've done. Look at what I've accomplished. And look at what I've been able to do. I'm able to take care of myself. No, you're not able. We cannot take care of ourselves, but it is God who provides for us that we're able to take care of our family and ourselves. Well, had it not been for God. And that's why, my brothers and sisters, that we ought to be willing to share what we have, what God has restored upon us. We ought to be willing to share it with somebody else. It ain't yours. It ain't mine. It doesn't belong to us. Have you ever seen a poor person? Yeah. You're looking at one when you look at me. But if somebody else can help to give to somebody else that's in need, why shut up our bowels of compassion and not be moved by it? Let somebody, they say, borrow, it was $300. It was over a year before they paid it back. I never said anything to them about it. In their whole year. Never. But when the income tax came around the next year, thanks be to God, that person remembered and decided to give it. But I said, maybe that person needed it more than I did. And I don't know about you, my brothers and sisters, but that's how the blessings keep coming on my way. That And God keeps blessing again some other way. He says again by the meekness, the usefulness, and the happiness of others. Not envying the gift. Like I said, the things that God has blessed somebody else with. Why envy what God has blessed somebody else with? Even the gift in the church. Some people, you can have the gift of singing. Somebody else get mad because of your gift of singing. Or your gift of praying, or your gift of this. Or get mad Sunday when we're talking Sunday school that if the Lord blesses you with something else that they don't have, or something else that people want to get envious of it. But we ought to be meek and thank God again for what He's done somebody else. Yes, sir. Another area where we ought to stop complaining about where you are in life. Yes, sir. Because guess what? We ought to accept whatever it is that God has brought you as being the will of God and say, God, whatever your will is for my life. Whatever your will is. That's what I said. Many of you have witnessed during the time of the surgery. I said, God, whatever your will. Yes, sir. Yes. I knew it was going to be all right because I knew God already knew about it, and I didn't have to worry about it. I could submit it. Then came back in October. And many people again don't understand. I said, whatever the will of God is, it will be done. And I have to be meek and say, Lord, whatever it is, 2 surgeries, 3 surgeries, or 4, God, whatever, sickness on top of sickness, Lord, whatever your will is, because I know that you're able to keep me. Say, God, I know you're able. Whatever your will, whatever my lot is, you can't look at nobody else and say, oh, well, because I ain't got that, and this and that. But whatever my lot, Lord, thou hast taught me to say, yes, sir, that it is well. Yes, sir. That it is well. You cannot compare yourself to others. Because we make the mistake of trying to compare ourselves to others. I thank God for what He has given me. Do you thank God for what He's given you? I thank God for what He has me. So what if your money is not flowing like you think it ought to flow right now? So what if this holiday season, the Christmas, won't be as luxurious as the ones you've had before? Thank God for where you are now. Don't sweat the small stuff of life. Don't sweat it. Because somebody else is able to buy all of these other things and to do all of these other. Don't sweat it because the only thing that you can give is the gift of love. Because there are those that have it and still don't have love. He says long suffering, that we ought to patiently bear the evil acts and deeds and words of others. You see, it's one thing to say that, but then there's another again to bear with somebody. Again, that you know that may not be saying kind things about you, or maybe misusing you, or saying, you see, these are the things that we got to have. And I say that to say that in particular the Christmas time message, because there are some folk in our families. Listen to me now. That have done some things to all of us. And yet, as believers, we want to hold on to that stuff. Oh, yes. Brothers who have not spoken, sisters who have not communicated, mothers or daughters, because of something again that has happened. But he said, we got to what? That long suffering. Yes, that we got to be patient with somebody else for the evil that they may have done to us, or the evil things that they may say about us. Yes, sir. You see, at this time of the year, we reflect upon a lot of the gifts. But look at this thing about Jesus. He was the greatest gift that was ever given. And look at what He is calling again for us to do. If you really want to be Christmas, we got to have these 5 things. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. I ain't worried about what it may look like under the tree. All right. But what about in our hearts? Yes. That's where it matters, in our heart. Those 5 things. He said, make allowance, and I love this verse. Make allowance for each other's faults.
Yes, sir. Yeah.
How many times did I do you wrong, Merle? Don't answer that. But it says, make allowance. You see, we don't make no allowance. Oh, they did it, and I ain't going to ever forgive them. Take that right on the hell with you then. Because he said that we ought to forgive. Y'all read that with me, did you?
Yes, sir.
In verse 13, forgive anyone who offends you.
Yeah.
I'm talking about a true Christmas, you see. These are the 5 things of Christmas that we need, you see. The world is talking about all of this. The world is talking about all of that. But guess what? The gifts and all this. These are the 5 things that we really need if you really, truly want to have a Christmas.
Yes, sir.
Forgive.
Yes, sir.
Somebody that offends you. Connect with somebody that you have not connected with in your family. Remember, and I love this part, when he says, remember, because the Lord